Max had always been fascinated by the wilderness and spent most of his days exploring the forest that surrounded his small rural village in Russia. As a skilled hunter, he knew the forest like the back of his hand and spent most of his time tracking and hunting prey. One morning, Max set out early into the forest, determined to get a good start on his hunt. A few customers had asked him to bring back some fresh meat and he was running low on supplies himself. As the morning wore on, the sun started to rise higher in the sky, casting an ethereal glow on the forest around him. As the sun reached its peak in the sky, Max decided to take a break for lunch. He had already hunted a few birds and decided to cook one over a small fire he had made. As he sat and ate, he couldn't help but feel a sense of peace and contentment in this magical place. But little did Max know that his love for the wilderness would lead him to a situation that would change his life forever. As he finished his lunch and packed up his things, he noticed a clearing ahead of him filled with light. Intrigued, he headed towards it, hoping to rest and take in the beauty of the forest. But as he entered the small clearing, he never could have expected to find what he did. Standing in the middle of the clearing was a tiger, its golden eyes fixed on Max as he emerged from the trees. Max froze in fear, his hand instinctively reaching for his gun. But despite catching the man off guard, the tiger didn't seem to want to attack. In fact, it was acting very calmly, almost as if it was waiting for something. Taking the tiger's behavior as an opportunity, Max slowly raised his gun and leveled it at the beast, hoping to deter it from attacking. But to his surprise, the tiger didn't move, simply staring back at him with a confused expression. Not wanting to shoot the beautiful creature if it posed no actual threat, Max slowly lowered his gun and began to creep towards the animal. As he got closer, Max noticed that the tiger was female, her teats full of milk. This meant that she had cubs nearby, a realization that filled Max with both fear and curiosity. He also noticed that the tiger was limping, its hind leg clearly wounded. Worried about the tigress's health, Max softly called out to her as he got closer, hoping to calm her. To his surprise, the tiger stopped growling and allowed him to get within a few feet of her. As he approached, Max realized that the tigress's wound was much worse than he had thought. It looked as if someone had tried to shoot the poor animal, and the wound had become infected. Max's heart went out to the tiger and he tried to help her, but she kept him away with her growls. Just as Max was starting to lose hope, the tigress did something truly extraordinary. She turned and started to walk away towards the edge of the clearing, but stopped just as she reached the trees. It was at this point that Max began to hear small mewls and growls. He realized with a start that these were the tigress's cubs. The adult big cat gently picked one of her babies up from the ground and limped her way back towards Max. Once she had reached him, she gently set the cub down at his feet and then went back to retrieve a second cub, leaving it right next to the first one. Max was incredibly confused and astonished by what was happening. He had no idea what the tigress wanted him to do with her cubs, and he was too afraid of what she might do if he tried to touch them. As Max stood there, unsure of what to do, the tigress turned and began to walk away from the hunter and her cubs. Max was shocked and tried to tell the animal to stay, but she simply disappeared into the forest. Left alone with the two tiny cubs, Max had no idea what to do. He knew that he couldn't just leave them there, but he also didn't want to risk the tigress's wrath if he tried to take them with him. As he stood there, trying to decide what to do, he heard a loud growl from deeper in the forest. His heart racing, Max realized that the tigress must have been fighting a grizzly bear for territory and had left her cubs with him for safety. Knowing that he couldn't just abandon the cubs, Max made up his mind and carefully picked them up, cradling them in his arms. As he began to make his way back to the village, Max couldn't help but feel a sense of responsibility for the two tiny lives in his arms. He knew that he had to find a way to care for them and keep them safe. Over the next few days, Max worked tirelessly to care for the cubs, feeding them and keeping them warm. As they grew stronger, he realized that he had developed a deep bond with the animals and couldn't imagine life without them. As the weeks passed, Max began to wonder if he would ever see the tigress again. He had grown attached to the cubs and was grateful for the chance to care for them. But he couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt for taking them from their mother. But one day, as he was out hunting, Max heard a faint growl in the distance. His heart racing, he followed the sound until he came across a clearing where he saw the tigress, her golden eyes fixed on him. But to his shock, the animal was clearly injured. her hind leg still wounded and her body weak. Without hesitation, Max rushed to the tigress's side and began to treat her wounds. Despite her initial growls of protest, the animal seemed to sense Max's kindness and allowed him to help her. As he worked, Max couldn't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude towards the tigress. She had trusted him with her cubs and he had done his best to care for them. And now, as he helped her, he knew that their bond was stronger than ever. After several days of treatment, the tigress's wounds had fully healed and she was ready to be reunited with her cubs. Max could see the happiness in her eyes as he brought the cubs to her and watched as she gently picked them up and began to lead them back into the forests. As the tigress disappeared into the trees with her children, Max couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness and loss. But he knew that it was time for them to go and that he had been given a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to connect with the wilderness and its creatures. And as he made his way back to the village, he knew that his love for the forest and its inhabitants would always be a part of him. Thanks for watching.
Today, we have a particularly special story to share with you. It's the story of Charlie, a dog who was rescued from a puppy mill and given a second chance at life. But this story isn't just about finding a forever home, it's also about the unexpected twists and turns that can happen along the way. Are you ready to hear Charlie's tale? Let's get started. Meet Charlie, a sweet and loving dog who for the first few years of his life, lived in a small, cramped cage with little room to move or play. He was used for breeding, and once he was no longer able to produce puppies, he was discarded and left to fend for himself. Can you even imagine living your entire life in such a small space, with no freedom or joy? It's a truly heartbreaking thought. But despite all the hardships he faced, Charlie remained a sweet and gentle dog. He never lost his love for people, and he always wagged his tail whenever anyone approached his cage. This was until recently, however, as a result of its constant abuse, Charlie began to lose his trust for humans. It was this kind and loving nature that caught the attention of a rescue organization, who vowed to save Charlie from the puppy mill and give him a second chance at life. It took months of planning and coordinating, but finally, the rescue team arrived at the puppy mill in order to free Charlie from his small, cramped cage. However, when they arrived there, they were shocked with what they saw. The dog was shivering and was even afraid to talk with humans. Every time one of the rescuers tried to pet him, the dog was crying with a sound of despair. After the rescuers gave the dog some sweet treats and a gentle tummy rub, they were able to gain his trust. They took him to a shelter, where he received the medical care and attention he needed to recover from his years of neglect. Charlie was malnourished and had a host of medical issues, but with the help of the shelter staff, he slowly began to heal and regain his strength. As Charlie's health improved, his true personality began to shine through. He was a playful and affectionate dog, always eager for a belly rub or a game of fetch. It wasn't long before he caught the eye of a kind and caring family, who knew that he was the perfect dog for them. Charlie was overjoyed when he was finally adopted and given a forever home. He quickly settled into his new life, and it seemed like everything was finally falling into place. He had a comfortable bed to sleep on, plenty of toys to play with, and a loving family who gave him all the attention he deserved. Charlie was finally able to experience the joys of being a beloved pet, something he had never known before. But just when it seemed like Charlie's story was coming to a happy ending, something shockingly unexpected happened. One day, while out on a walk with his new family, Charlie suddenly collapsed. His family was terrified and rushed him to the vet, where they discovered that Charlie had been suffering from a serious heart condition that had gone undiagnosed for years. The vet explained that if they hadn't caught it in time, Charlie could have died from the condition. Despite the news, Charlie's family refused to give up on him. They were determined to do everything in their power to help him recover. They devoted all their time and energy to caring for Charlie, and with the help of medication and a special diet, he began to slowly but surely regain his strength. Charlie's family was amazed by his resilience and determination to fight for his life. Months passed, and Charlie's health continued to improve. He became more energetic and playful, and he even started to learn new tricks. His family was overjoyed to see him thriving and enjoying life to the fullest. They knew that they had made the right decision in adopting Charlie and giving him the love and care he deserved. But just when it seemed like Charlie's story was finally reaching a happy ending, another shocking twist occurred. Charlie's family received a call from the rescue organization that had saved him from the puppy mill, informing them that the person who had owned the mill had been arrested and was facing charges for animal cruelty. Charlie's family was shocked and saddened by the news, but they were also grateful that justice was finally being served. They knew that without the efforts of the rescue organization, Charlie might never have been rescued and given a second chance at life. Charlie's family was determined to do everything they could to support the rescue organization and help other animals like Charlie. They began volunteering their time and resources, and even started a fundraising campaign to help raise awareness about the plight of animals in puppy mills. Charlie became an ambassador for the cause, and his story inspired countless others to get involved and make a difference. Today, Charlie is a happy and healthy dog, thanks to the love and care of his devoted family. He is a reminder of the importance of rescuing animals from puppy mills and giving them a second chance at life. Charlie's story may have had its ups and downs, but in the end, he found his true forever home, and that is what truly matters. He is living proof that with a little love and care, any dog can overcome their past and find happiness in their future. We hope you enjoyed hearing Charlie's story as much as we enjoyed telling it.
This incredible story happened in the deep forests of Siberia. Valentin was a poor man, without a family, living alone in a village. He had never had the means to pursue higher education, but he was a bright, kind man who did not shy away from a challenge. When he was offered the position of forest ranger, he accepted without hesitation. The job sounded perfect to him. He had lived in the mountains all his life and knew the area like the back of his hand. Every 2 days Valentin went through the forest and checked that everything was all right. One winter morning, while walking a routine walk, he stumbled upon something that would change his life forever. That day the forest was covered with thick snow, and Valentin had to stop every few steps to catch his breath. During one of those pauses, he heard a low whimper coming from somewhere nearby. He paused and tried to pinpoint the location of the noise. But as soon as he made the slightest movement, the whimpering suddenly stopped. Valentin thought he was hallucinating and hearing things that didn't exist. But just as he was about to continue on his way, he heard it again. This time he was able to locate the sound near a bush in front of him. He cautiously approached the sound and saw a head sticking out of the snow. It was a tiger cub. The animal cried and shook its head to brush off the snow. Valentin took a close look and noticed bloody bite marks on his body. It also looked like it had a broken leg. The ranger immediately went to help the cub. He picked it up and hugged it to his chest as he quickly made his way down the mountain and back into the valley. Valentin made a bed for the tiny cub out of his old clothes and bandaged the animal to stop the bleeding. He then gathered some sticks from the garden and tied them around the broken leg to steady it. The cub whimpered but let him take care of it. Valentin thought the tiger must be hungry, but he didn't know what to feed him. In his helplessness he warmed up some milk and brought it to the little tiger cub. The tiger was tired and in pain but seemed interested in the milk. Valentin put the bowl on the floor for him, and he slowly began to lick up the milk with his tongue. The ranger continued to devote his days to caring for the tiger cub. The man asked how to feed the animal, and the cub grew bigger and bigger every day. Over time, his injuries healed, but a long scar remained on his leg. Valentin named him Gore. After 6 months, the delicate cub had grown into a majestic tiger. Gore often accompanied Valentin on his forays into the mountains, and on these walks, Valentin noticed Gore frolicking and playing in the grass like a giant house cat. The ranger was happy that the tiger was happy. However, the ranger was aware that Gore was still a wild animal and not cut out for life in captivity. Therefore Valentin had to make a difficult decision. He had to release Gore into the wild. The man took the predator to the forest and said goodbye to him. But as he set off, the tiger followed him, just as it had for the past 6 months. Valentin didn't know how to get Gore to stay in the wild. He tried yelling and shouting, and his plan seemed to work, as Gore had never seen his master angry before. Terrified, the tiger ran into the forest, and his human friend went back to the village with tears in his eyes. Valentine continued to patrol the area, but he never saw Gore again. 4 years later, Valentine had almost forgotten the tiger. The man was struggling with physical problems. During one of his daily forays, the ranger fainted and was accidentally found by another villager named Dmitri chopping wood nearby. You can't imagine what would have happened if the man hadn't saved him. When Valentine was out in the woods again a few weeks later, he felt a tingling pain in his waist and fainted again. In this case, too, his guardian angel seemed to have meant well for him. Valentine was discovered by a hiker and taken to a hospital. There, the doctor found that the man had acute kidney problems. The ranger stayed in the hospital for a few days, but refused life-saving surgery because of the high cost. Returning home, Valentine resumed his normal life as a ranger in the woods. 6 months later, however, another medical emergency overtook him. This time his kidneys were in even worse condition than before. Valentine again refused the operation and promised to take more breaks during his walks in the forest. The next summer he was back on patrol when he saw plumes of smoke rising from the mountains. The area had been ravaged by wildfires and the ranger knew something was wrong. The flames spread quickly and came very close to Valentine. The man then started running down the mountain as fast as he could. Unfortunately, weakened by his poor health, he stumbled and fell. The man lay helpless on the ground and couldn't get up on his own. Meanwhile, the flames spread mercilessly behind him. Out here nobody would find him in time, and soon the flames would engulf him. But in that desperate moment, a tiger suddenly appeared in front of him, and Valentine didn't know what to do. The fire was behind him, getting closer by the second, and now a tiger stood in front of him, blocking his path. Valentine closed his eyes and decided to accept his fate. But what the tiger did next shocked him. When it opened its mouth, it grabbed at its clothing instead of its flesh, and began to drag it away from the flames. Stunned, Valentine began to crawl down the mountain behind the tiger. He was almost safe when a flaming branch fell from a tree and knocked him to the ground. The tiger also suffered burns, but did not leave his side. On the contrary, the predator yanked the branch away from the man, clearing the way. He was very confused by the tiger's behavior, but this wasn't the moment to question his intentions. The colossus led him home, and when he was sure the human was out of harm's way, he rubbed his body affectionately against the human's legs. This movement snapped Valentine back to reality. He had thought he was dreaming, but now he recognized his old friend Gore. Though he had grown and gotten bigger, the tiger still had a long scar on his leg. Valentine looked at the tiger and asked loudly if it was Gore. Hearing his name, he looked at him and let out a long roar of approval. After a few minutes, however, the tiger made his way back into the forest. Valentine desperately wanted his old friend to stay with him a little longer, but the animal now knew its place in the world and went back to its natural habitat. If you like this amazing story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for free, for more amazing content.
We are thrilled to share with you this powerful and moving story of a family who stumbled upon a small and shivering dog, lying in the snow on a cold winter evening. Little did they know, this chance encounter would change their lives forever. This video will take you on an emotional journey, and what they found under the dog's body will leave you speechless and teary-eyed. A real heart-wrenching story with a happy end. You don't want to miss it. It was a cold and snowy winter evening when John and his family returned home from the evening church service. They bundled up in warm coats and scarves and set out into the falling snow. As they walked back home, in the corner just around their house, they noticed a faint movement out of the corner of their eye. They were not sure as to what to expect, especially under these snowy conditions. Initially, the family thought it was a wild bear, so they started to back off. However, suddenly they heard a familiar sound, something similar to a dog cry. Curious, they followed the movement to a small clearing, where they were shocked with what they saw. There, they found a dog lying in the snow. At first, they thought the dog was ready to die, as she was covered in snow. But as they got closer, they saw her chest rise and fall, due to her shallow breaths because of the extreme cold. She was small and scruffy looking, and she appeared to be in poor condition. John and his family were instantly filled with concern for the dog's well-being, and they reached out to touch her, but she growled and bared her teeth. They backed off, realizing they needed to be careful around the wild dog. But still, they wanted to help her. John and his family knew that the dog was frightened and in a state of survival mode, so they approached her slowly and cautiously, speaking softly to her in an effort to soothe her. They also moved slowly and carefully, so as not to startle her. John was carrying some leftover sandwich, so they offered her some food, which she initially refused, but after a few times, she started to take small bites of, which helped to build a sense of trust and comfort with them. Slowly she allowed them to touch her, and they used this opportunity to reinforce the idea that they were there to help her, not hurt her. With a lot of patience, John and his family were able to build trust with the dog, and ultimately able to wrap her in a blanket and bring her back home, where they laid her on a warm blanket in front of the fireplace, to begin to recover from the cold and her poor condition. The dog seemed to relax a bit, but still seemed to be in poor condition. As they began to examine the dog more closely, they noticed that her fur was matted and dirty, and she had cuts and bruises all over her body. They also noticed that her ribs were sticking out, and she was terribly underweight, which led them to realize that this dog had been through a lot. As they were examining her, they noticed that the dog had started to whine and tremble. At first, they thought it was just because she was cold and scared, but then they noticed something strange. The dog's belly was moving, and they were completely shocked with what they discovered next. They were horrified to see that the dog was hiding puppies under her body. They were horrified to think that this poor dog had been out in the cold and snow, trying to keep her puppies alive. They immediately knew that they needed to help her and her puppies. They fed the dog some warm broth and began to groom her. The snow might have continued to fall outside, but inside, there was warmth and love in the hearts of John and his family. The next morning, John called the local vet, who came to check on the dog's condition and gave necessary vaccinations and medical treatment to her and the puppies. Over the next few days, the dog began to recover. Her fur became shiny and clean, and she began to gain weight. Her puppies, which were only a few weeks old, were also healthy and strong. They all were really happy to be with a loving family who cared for them. They family knew that they couldn't keep the dog and her puppies forever. They reached out to local animal shelters and rescue groups to find the dog and her puppies a loving forever home. In the end, the dog and her puppies were finally in a safe place, surrounded by people who loved and cared for them. John and his family felt happy knowing that they had made a difference in the lives of these innocent animals, and the experience also taught them about responsibility of taking care of living beings, and also the importance of being kind and compassionate to all living creatures. Hello everyone, today we're talking about a heart-wrenching incident that happened at Istanbul Airport in Turkey on the 19th of January, where a man traveling from Istanbul to Switzerland experienced a traumatic situation when the airline appeared to have lost his 4 dogs in the cargo hold. The man, who was traveling with his beloved pets, was unable to check on them during a layover in Istanbul and was denied access by the staff. This led to a breakdown, with the man crying and pleading with the staff for assistance. The scene was captured on video and went viral, attracting over 6 million views on TikTok and over 8 million views on YouTube. The video highlights the emotional attachment people have with their pets and the challenges of flying with them. He was on his way to Switzerland when the plane made a stop in Istanbul, but his companions never arrived. He desperately cried in the hallways, and because the airline decided to ignore him, he laid on the floor in the middle of a panic attack. The video, recorded by a witness, went viral and generated empathy with the heartbroken man. He was unable to believe what was happening, and he was extremely distressed. The man shouted, "Show me my dogs. I paid everything. I paid everything." Some other passengers approached to try and console him, while others just watched on. He continued to scream, "They are keeping my dogs. I don't know where are my dogs." The worst part was that the airline workers stayed in absolute silence, and their conduct was suspicious. It was more than just a case of missing luggage. A crowd of people formed to watch the incident, while minutes passed by and the dogs were nowhere to be seen. The man was shouting, "This is my life, my children." So eventually the man took different measures, by contacting the police to investigate. The officers pressured the airline, who just then decided to do their jobs and communicate with their peers in the other airports to search for the missing animals. After the video went viral, many people noted that it can be challenging to fly with a dog, but as the further said, it is not necessarily a good idea to check them as luggage. They store pets in the baggage area where it's freezing, one woman said. This is why I'm so skeptical to fly with my dogs in cargo, another noted. However, another video claims this situation was a little different. Apparently, this man was flying to Switzerland with a layover in Istanbul, and during that stop, he asked employees if he could check on his dogs and was denied, leading to his reaction. While it's understandable he wanted to check on his dogs during the layover, it makes sense that airlines don't let people see their luggage once it's been checked. After being posted online, the video has sparked a debate among users about the welfare of pets during air travel. Some people believe that airlines need to change their policies to allow pets to travel in the cabin with their owners, instead of being stored in the freezing baggage area. Others understand the airline's restrictions on allowing passengers to access their checked luggage, but they sympathize with the man's distress. However, most of the comments were sympathetic to the man, with people saying, "Only those of us who love our four-legged beings know what it feels like. I don't wish anyone the panic attack you are experiencing. I hope you find them. You will never be able to understand this type of video until you have the joy of experiencing that love. I almost cried. I understand your desperation." Thankfully, the man was allowed to see his dogs and they all arrived together and safely in Switzerland. In 2019, a similar incident occurred at Ezeiza International Airport, where a dog escaped from its cage just as it was about to be boarded on a plane bound for Barcelona. The dog managed to break out of its kennel, but unfortunately, it was never found. This incident has touched the hearts of many pet owners, and we can understand why. Only those of us who love our four-legged friends know what it feels like to be separated from them. Many users online said that the man was acting normal. He was probably thinking they were lost, stolen, or even dead. He didn't overreact at all. Another user said, "I would literally be fighting someone physically. The thought of something happening to them is unbearable," and the man in the video experienced this firsthand. According to the International Air Transport Association, approximately 2 million live animals are transported by air annually. In recent years, there have been reports of animals losing their lives during flights, with the causes ranging from poor handling to technical problems with the flight. In conclusion, we hope that this incident serves as a wake-up call for airlines to improve their policies and handling procedures for pets. No pet owner should have to go through the heartache of losing their beloved furry friend. And while flying with dogs can be a challenge, we hope that airlines can find a way to make the experience a little less stressful for both pets and their owners. That's all for today. We hope this video has given you some insight into this heartbreaking incident and the debate surrounding it. If you're a pet owner, make sure to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this one. See you tomorrow.
Also check out our recent uploads, or go to our channel to check other majestic animal stories. Stay pawsome.